Episode 2. Let's get going right here. It is Dan Mathews in the Animals. I'm the Dan Mathews part. He is Matt Maltepes. He is the Animal as we get you ready for full force week 1 college football. Let's go. We're recording this on a Thursday, so we went through those games on Tuesday. You're good. You're ready for Florida and Utah. You're ready for all of the other games that are coming your way this weekend, of course, as well. Going to have Nebraska and Minnesota to open up the season, Louisville, Georgia Tech. We went over those games. We're good. Now, one housekeeping note before we get into the games today here, Matt. I did tease Ohio State in Indiana, but then also, too, little team meeting here. We went over it and we said 30-point line, even with Kyle McCord being announced as the starting quarterback, and he is getting his first start, a 30-point line there, even in Bloomington on the road. It's just not much value there. So I'm not about wasting many people's times. Matt, I know that you're not about wasting people's time. So let's get to the games that we care about this weekend. And we're going to do that right off the bat, right here, right now. The game that is going to be the game of Saturday, either in the afternoon or the nighttime. In this case, the nighttime. It's going to be UNC South Carolina. You're going to have College Game Day there in Charlotte for this one. That is a huge cross-section for both schools in terms of alumni bases, where you have a lot of South Carolina grads that live in the Charlotte area. You have a lot of UNC grads that live there as well. So it probably will be split down the middle in terms of Carolina blue and also the garnet and black for South Carolina. But in this one on Saturday night, Matt, set you up for it like this. Heels a 2.5-point favorite in this one. Over under for this one, 64. How are you seeing this one shaking out?
So the line on this one actually opened UNC -1.5. That number moved quickly to 3, where then we saw some sharps come in. They came and took the key number of 3s out of the market. Now sits at about 2.5. Total open 61.5, went down to around 59.5, and that got pushed way up to 64.5, 65. You can see some 65s at shops. UNC, Drake May, right? Back at Chapel Hill. Problem is that the fact last year they couldn't run the ball. Well, they have a lot of talent on that team, and Drake May is the talent. His usage rate for this team is out of this world. He's awesome. He's an amazing player. But they did lose their receiver from last year, Josh Downs, who went to the NFL. Their defense, not the best, to say the least. They're supposed to blitz more this year. We're going to see – they have some good talent coming in this year. They have a solid D-line, some guys at linebacker. They did a good job in the portal with the secondary, so I do expect them to be better, but they're still going to be one of the weaker defenses by far in the ACC, in my opinion. I think what kills this team, to be honest, is the coaching. I think that's what kills them. Now, on to South Carolina. Offense, they finished ranked last year for the first time in a while, the team. They had 15 wins over the last 2 seasons. They had the most giveaways on offense in the SEC, but at the same time, they also had the most takeaways in the SEC in the last 2 seasons. They don't have a ton of returning experience, but they do have Spencer Rattler coming back, right? My concern is Loggains as the offensive coordinator. We've seen him in the NFL, not much success, whether it was Miami, New York, all these different places. Gamecocks, they were top 25 in explosive play percentage, but they also had a lot of turnovers, like I said previously. Rattler had the 4th most turnover rate out of Power 5 quarterbacks with at least 500 dropbacks. I'm not so sure about the surrounding cast. The offensive line's a little bit of a question mark. Returning production below average. Doesn't spell well for those turnover problems. Running back room, a little bit of a question mark. Thankfully, they do have a good wide receiver in Antoine Wells. Defense for the Gamecocks, both defensive ends that played a lot of snaps last year, transferred out to better schools. Only a handful of starters to return. Their run stop defense, it wasn't existent at all last year. They're able to create turnovers, which took away some of their poor play, but they lost 9 of their top 14 tacklers. So to me, downgrade on defense. Linebackers, I'm not so sure. Lost 2 players from a year ago. They'll have to rely on that secondary, but the defense lacks depth. So a little bit of a downgrade on defense. That leads me to the over on the game. I do like the over 64. Battle of the QBs in May. Rattler, May's the better quarterback, in my opinion. But when Rattler's on his A game, we saw last year, he can battle with the best. Took down Clemson, right? Took down, what did he put up? 60 points on Tennessee. And then he went against Notre Dame, put up 38, and they ended up losing. May actually went up against Notre Dame as well. He ended up losing by 13, whereas Rattler only lost by 7, one score. Tar Heels, they actually matched up last year against Clemson. They lost by 29. Rattler and Gamecocks were able to actually take them down. So if you're betting this side, I'd look to take the numbers game on here, the +3, the key number of 3 on South Carolina. As for the total, like over 64.
Yeah, I'm with you on the over as well. I mean, because second year of Gene Chizik, his whole charge was to come in and be able to resurrect that Carolina defense. And that's been really kind of the thing with this Carolina team as well, Matt, that it has been, the quarterback, and he's going to be, if not the first, one of the first quarterbacks taken in this upcoming draft, in Drake May. Huge, a huge, falling point for them is likely not going to have Tez Walker for this one, as they have not heard back from the NCAA in terms of an appeal. I would not expect that to happen by Saturday. I mean, stranger things have happened. Who knows? Maybe the NCAA wakes up tomorrow and says, hey, we want to be the good guys for once. We're going to go ahead and make him available to you for this game. And if that's the case, then that would be a huge boost for Carolina. You're right about Spencer Rattler as well. Last year, when the games mattered the most, those final 3 games of the year, that's when he played his best football. And he absolutely showed up against against Tennessee, showed up against Clemson as well, a game that South Carolina had not won in some time. And then also, too, in that bowl game against Notre Dame, that was a good one there. I took the money line on South Carolina in this one because I kind of feel like the board is giving you a little bit of value there. I got it at 115. It looks like the sharps are starting to go a little bit more on the Carolina side, because now I saw that at least one shop, the shop that I use, has it at plus 120. The over-under staying pretty solid right there at minus 110. So you play that under right there. You play that over right there as opposed to playing the under. I'm with you. I think the over is the play. I think that both of these defenses give up a lot of yards and a lot of points. If you're in for a shootout style of football, then I think that Saturday night you're going to be very much in luck for that one. So that will be fun to watch, no doubt. The following night, we're going to get a really fun one. I'm looking forward to this one. I know a lot of our listeners and our audience who are viewing us on YouTube, they definitely are looking forward to this one, and that is LSU-Florida State in Orlando. It is the Orlando portion of last year, this game being played in New Orleans. Of course, Florida State able to win that on the blocked PAT. LSU now down to a 2.5-point favorite in this one. I got them at 3 over the summer, Matt, and that line has since moved slightly, and I probably wouldn't expect it to move that much more, after as soon as we post up this show. The over-under 56, that one's a little interesting there, right? I've got to believe that you're looking at that 56 number.
So this side, first of all, the side open LSU -3, right? Now you're seeing some 2s, 2.5s in the market. Total open 56. Actually went as high as 58 and dropped back down to where it now sits again at 56. Florida State team, they rank number 1 in returning production coming into the season. We're looking at an offense that has improved. They're versatile. Jordan Travis could be one of the most probably improved quarterbacks that we've seen in the last couple of years. I mean, if you see the jumps year by year, so year-to-year improvement for the kid has been night and day. Skill positions, they're set up well. Wide receivers are deep. They have some big guys out there. Johnny Wilson, I believe he's like 6'6", 6'7", huge. Keon Coleman came from the transfer portal. He's 6'4". They have some good guys in the receiving room. Offensive line, my opinion, how this program back a couple of years back. Last year they were solid, but coming in this year they have 207 career starts, the most in the history of college football. So I don't know if they're going to be top 5 offensive, in the country, but by any means. But I would put them top 25, top 20. Defensive line for this team, strength. Linebackers solid. Weakest group to me has to be the secondary on defense, but they have some nice size up front and get some pressure off the edge. They brought in some quality transfers. Look at LSU coming into the season, Tigers team. I've said it. I made videos before talking about how talented this team is. They're probably one of the most talented teams in the nation, if not the most talented team in the nation, with returning starters bringing back over 80% of their offensive production. Both teams are looking to have monster seasons. I believe it's going to be a close one. So you're probably going to want to get your popcorn ready. It's a good matchup. However, I do love this LSU team. But if you can find +3 on the Seminoles, that's where I'd put my money.
Interesting. All right. Yeah. I mean, it is going to be a game that you mentioned. I mean, two top tier quarterbacks as well as LSU not going to have Mason Smith for this one. But, I mean, you still have Wingo on that defensive line. You've got Harold Perkins as well. A lot of questions about LSU in the secondary because they haven't been DBU for some time. And that kind of going the Florida State route where we've seen Mike Norvell find some serious success there in the transfer portal. The high school recruiting is really starting to pick up for the Noles. But this is by far the most talented team that he will have had. I think for LSU, too, a little bit last year, even with it being a first game, I think there was a little bit of that where it was kind of a getting used to each other, really for Brian Kelly and also the players. I also, too, will say I think LSU underestimated that Florida State team last year. And from LSU people that I have talked with, they've said this game is circled. Let me tell you a quick story before we get on to Clemson and Duke. Johnny Manziel, when he and Texas A&M went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama a few years ago, that entire offseason, Alabama put up photos. The strength and conditioning staff, who the strength coach at the time was Scott Cochran, they put up the highlights of the game during their summer workouts, i.e., they had that game circled. People I've talked with LSU, with the celebration on the field, with just, the way that a lot of Florida State fans reacted, LSU fans, from what I've been told in the program also as well, they've said, no, this game is circled. Like, we are ready for this one. We're going to see them coming a mile away. We're going to be prepared for this one. So, second year of Brian Kelly. The first year was a great return. We'll see what it looks like on Sunday night. It'll be a lot of fun for that one. Let's close it out here really quick. Talking about Clemson at Duke. Now, I know a lot of people are probably saying, wait a minute, dude, like the casual football fan out there is saying, you bumped Ohio State and Indiana for this? Duke? Dude, you ain't paying attention if you're not paying attention to Duke. Riley Leonard is a name you're going to want to look for. Also, Cade Klubnik. I was reading up on Klubnik a little bit. I had a chance to see him. I'm friends with some of his family members here in Texas, and I got to see him play at Austin Westlake High School, same high school that produced Drew Brees, Nick Foles, Sam Ehlinger. So there is a proud quarterback lineage there in the Austin area, and he chooses to go to Clemson. Last year got a little bit of a cup of coffee as the starter. Not as great a performance against Tennessee. I think they were overmatched in that game. But the question that I have with this Clemson team is, who is he throwing the football to? Because the offensive weapon is Will Shipley, and I think that you expect him a lot, but you got to have more than Will Shipley in this one. Clemson, a 13.5-point favorite in Durham on Monday night. The over-under set at 55 and a hook. Matt, how you seeing it?
This game opened Clemson -11.5, right? 12-ish. That moved to 13.5, as you just said. Total open 58, 57.5, and is now down to 55. So in my opinion, this Clemson team is going to be better than the last couple of years. I think they're pretty damn good. It won't be as good as Deshaun Watson days, but it's going to be better than last year. I think one of the biggest changes was bringing in Garrett Riley, who's now the offensive coordinator, right? I think that's definitely an upgrade. Offensive line, we have 4 starters, right? Returning starters. Big positive. Top 10 in schedule, adjusted line yards created last year. They just need to clean up their pass protection, but a guy like Blake Miller should progress at tackle. 4 returning starters equals more stability, right? Run game, I think it has a little bit more explosiveness. The problem here is, like you said earlier, wide receiver group concerns in terms of getting separation. So to me, it's definitely cause a concern, but they have a nice tight end, which should help out that a little bit, ease it a little bit. Defense coordinator, Wes Goodwin, right? Tied for 4th in nation in sacks last year. They've been top 10 in sacks since 2014. He lost a good amount of all ACC players into the NFL draft. They were outside top 75 in explosive pass plays, which is, they're susceptible chunk yardage. 8 returning starters, good though. 2 great linebackers, Trotter, Bear, Carter. So should be some progression there. Duke now, that offense, most wins in a season since 2014, right? Elko enters his 2nd season, did a great job. They had some turnover luck last year, in my opinion. especially with the fumbles. They lost their defensive coordinator from last year. They have great returning production, which is going to help this team. But I just don't think they have the depth they need to compete as much this season the way they did last year, especially with the turnover, luck, and those fumbles and whatnot. I actually like Clemson here, minus the 13.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Clemson team, too, that you talked about Garrett Riley taking over in the offseason. And a buddy of mine who covers Clemson talked about that pretty much Dabo's real epiphany, if you will, because Dabo was a guy that liked to promote from within in his program. And his epiphany was at Notre Dame last year when they got doors blown off by the Irish up there in South Bend, where he basically said in the post-game press conference, this has to change in terms of the offense. We got to get back to what we were. Funny enough, over the offseason, it's one of those things. You want to be rich, do what rich people do. He calls up Lincoln Riley and says, hey, you got anybody in mind that would be a good OC hire for me? Lincoln straight up goes, yeah, my brother. He'd be interested. Give him a call. Because I think Dabo's probably thinking, wait a minute. He just came off the national championship game at TCU. He's in a good spot that if he has a couple of more good years, he gets his own shop to run. And he, sure enough, calls up Garrett Riley and says, would you like to come to the upstate of South Carolina? And he said, yeah, absolutely, I would. So he's there. It at least shows that there is some change there at Clemson. And it'll be interesting to see if that means a win for them on Monday night. So we got the South Carolina-North Carolina game for you. We got the LSU-Florida State game for you. And, of course, we got Monday night Clemson at Duke. We've got all of those right here. Episode 2 of Dan Mathews and the Animals. Episode 2 in the books. But before we go, I want to actually do a little bit of housekeeping right here. And that is like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, like and subscribe, download the podcast wherever you get your podcast needs. You are able to get it on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever that might be. Our good buddies on the distribution site, they're working on that right now, getting it out to you. But, of course, for a fact, it's right here. You see my fotch, you see his fotch as we come to you twice a week during the college football season and get you ready for the weekend ahead. So, episode 2 is in the books. I'm Dan Mathews. He's Matt Maltepes. He's the Animal. As we will talk to you next Tuesday to brief recap, but also to get you ready for the week ahead in college football. We'll talk to you soon.